Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon, joined by the Ruckettes, Kansas City Star editorial writer Yael Abu-Haka, political consultant Steve Glorioso, media and communications consultant Mary O'Halloran, and joining us for the first time, Jeff Rowe, founder of Axiom Strategies, a political consulting firm based in Kansas City, and I think it is fair to say well-known nationwide. Jeff, welcome to the program. Good to have you with us. This is the week we celebrate the birthday of former President Harry Truman, and it was Truman who once famously said, "Get me a one-armed economist." Truman had grown tired of equivocating economists who would say things like, well, on the one hand this could work, but on the other hand it might not. Arguments about the so-called dismal science of economics began long before President Truman and continue today. While many economists deplore the growing deficit and debt, others, including the head of the UMKC Economics Department, think austerity is the wrong answer. Stephanie Kelton told the Star's Steve Kraske that current policies hamper growth and tax hikes and budget cuts are not the cure. In fact, Kelton says it all addresses a crisis that doesn't actually exist. No crisis existing, Mary?
Well, it depends on your point of view, but I don't know that. I'm pleased to hear about her and hear about her participating in this national debate. It's so significant. I think what most economists across the nation are saying right now that are progressive or come out of the opposition to the budget cutting approach to this crisis. Yeah, I do think it's a crisis, actually. But I think it's a crisis of unemployment, and I think it's a crisis of growth. And what she points out, and what others are showing, is, by the way, the debt is falling. The deficit is falling at record speed, actually, just out from the Congressional Budget Office yesterday. So taking a look at the unemployment situation, what is it? We have about 11.5 million people unemployed in this country. Adds up to about 13.5% of the workforce that can't find work. Add a whole bunch of other people who have given up looking for work, and you have to ask yourself, can we continue to call this the end of the recession? Is this a recovery? If growth is only this last third of the last year was 0.5%. Everybody said, oh, looky, January, February, and March, it's 2.5, but that's not enough growth to really put people back to work. So why is it so slow? Because of the insistence on Congress on this failed notion that the way to deal with a serious recession is through cutting budgets and cutting employment in the public sector.
All right, Jeff, let me get you involved in this discussion. Do you think what Mary says is right, that these kinds of changes that are being contemplated, being recommended largely by Republicans, are wrong?
Well, I don't agree with Mary. Start that off right off the bat. I want to get that out of the way. But there's smart people can disagree. It's a Keynesian theory. Government spends more money.
This Dr. Kelton is a Keynesian.
That's right. The government spends more money. It creates economic stimulus. It filters down throughout the masses, and you have a better economy. We've now had 5 years of trying that.
Oh, ew.
And we spend $1 trillion more today per year than we did 4 years ago. And it's simply not worked. Now, you can go throughout history. What capitalism provides is for people to take a small amount of money, invest it in something, and hope for a modest return. That's what drives the economy. So all the theories that compare us to Europe don't apply because Europe is not entrepreneurial. They work for the government. They don't work for themselves.
Well, Jeff, that's okay. You've given the Keynesian people the back of your hand, but the Austerians haven't worked. The stimulus that you referred to last week, Mike, was only a temporary stimulus. It saved 2 or 3 million jobs. It should have been designed to save 10 or 12 million
But Mary,
jobs.
it was described as the cure-all, the way to get the economy. Well, it wasn't. I think it was.
Well, it was a cure-all to stop us from going completely off the cliff. The point now is, how are we going to stimulate the economy? And by the way, it does work. All across Europe, they're trying austerity, and it's not working.
Steve.
Well, the last point Mary made, is that we've seen in Japan now and Germany and probably I think the next in line is going to be Great Britain, where they have now acknowledged that they have cut back too much, that the austerity throughout Europe, I mean, Spain has unemployment of 27%, and so there's this, I think they've come to realize they're out of balance. The amount of cutback in community spending, government spending was too much. The thing is, we have laid off, I think there's something like well over 100,000 fewer government workers. Maybe it's even more than 200,000 through the last 5 years, state, local, and federal. If those government workers were still employed, the unemployment rate would be in the 6th percentile somewhere. I mean, that's one example of what stimulus, building roads, building bridges, contracting out. And the other thing that isn't happening is big business. Those of us heavily invest in the stock market are having the weed. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's great, but you've got companies hoarding gazillions of dollars
because of the uncertainty over what's going to happen with the economy, especially in terms of the Obamacare.
Yeah, but why would you hire more people when you're making record profits?
Well, and why would you hire more when you're not sure what the medical costs are going to be?
Well,
I want to get Yale in here. Austerity, we're being told, is the wrong answer for the national government. Is it also the wrong answer for state governments?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are some programs that can be, I mean, the conservative part of me says, well, no, let's cut back some of these programs.
Which part is that?
This is part right here. It's my left arm.
Your left arm is your conservative?
And I think, you know, what the one good thing that the implosion has brought about is that there's a search for more efficiency in government. I've seen it in Kansas City, Missouri. There are, you know, they said, well, actually, we're not getting more money over here. We have to be efficient. However, I will also quickly say, if you note, that if you spend money on the right things, you can improve government services. I mean, that's what Kansas City's doing with its parks program, for example. Exactly. They're actually doing a better job than they were 2 years ago. So there are ways of spending money correctly, but I think it's actually on the local level, you have a little bit more control of that. In the federal level, I think there are cutbacks that need to be made.
In other words, efficient and austere are not synonyms.
Well, it is.
Correct. Exactly.
All right, we've got to move on. It is not just economists who disagree over policy. Ask most liberals or most conservatives about the need for and the viability of a 2-mile starter streetcar system in downtown Kansas City. Proponents see this as the springboard for a mass transit system that will one day cross state lines and serve the entire metro area. Opponents see a huge cost, increased taxes, and a form of transportation that will need taxpayer subsidies forever. The recently approved streetcar line has again been challenged in court by some property owners along the route. Some supporters worry that protracted court hearings could add cost to the already expensive project. Do you agree with that? Is that likely?
Well, it could add cost. I mean, the conservative
and time delays.
The conservative left arm of my body is telling me there is a problem with this project, and that is the whole cost structure of how much it's going to cost from the new sales tax, the new property tax, and just from regular taxpayers. I think it's like $2 million or so. So that's the cost side. Now, Russ Johnson has told me and others, the city council member Russ Johnson has told me and others that, hey, there's contingency in there because we know this is the first time we try it. We put a large contingency in there. We think that's enough to take care of the unforeseen costs. So I'm actually less worried that it's going to go a bazillion dollars over budget. What I've been fascinated about is, you know, the continuing legal struggles over this and whether it's going to go anywhere or not. Again, not necessarily surprising because it's the first time, and it is controversial. I mean, there's a die-hard fanatical group down there that wants it to happen, you know, and they'll laugh at anybody who doesn't think it's going to be the next greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm talking about the pro-streetcar supporters who, you know, if you say anything bad about streetcars, they're on you like flies. However, overall, yes, I want to see better transit in Kansas City. I think this is at least a reasonable first step at doing so. If you could build a 2-mile starter line and it never goes anywhere else, oh wait, we invested $100 million, it was a bust. Well, that's a lot better than saying a $1 billion light rail line, which we don't have.
Jeff, I'm interested in your viewpoint on this. What do you think about this starter streetcar system?
Well, if they really wanted to approach this as they do in typical Kansas City issues and take it to a citywide vote, I don't think they'd be seeing the problems that they have. But instead, they created a special taxing district to create a special tax to fund this, and now they have lawsuits that may go on for some time. Now, I don't believe the construction costs are as bad as they say, but let's have a public vote. When you try and be too cute by half, the voters will hold you accountable. 500 people voting on whether to spend $20 million. It's just not an appropriate way to do it.
Are you generally, though, supportive of ideas like mass transit or even limited additions of transit like we have with the 2-mile system?
It's tough for me, to be honest, because every...
It's tough for you to be honest?
It's tough for me to be honest.
Oh, so that's what it is.
The honest is in my left arm.
It's tough for
Left
you.
arm, left arm.
Honest, yeah, okay.
It's the Liberal Party you're coming out.
Go ahead. Go ahead with
Well,
your
it's
answer.
it's tough because for every form of mass transit is subsidized.
Yes.
It cannot make money on its own. And so is it a worthwhile thing for government to do? I personally don't think so, not in the conditions we have,
Jeff,
not with the way the
every
sewers
form of
are.
transportation is subsidized. I mean, to the hilt. I think with this, I think what we have to be concerned about if you want this to succeed is something happening in the courts. You know, there just may be some element of this strange little mechanism they put together that the court doesn't like. I doubt it, though, because I think it'll be on an expedited basis that the courts will review it. It's already, it looks as if that's going to happen. And that'll be good because they have to apply for the federal funds, and they better get
there is a
cracking.
deadline on that, Steve. I don't know exactly what it is, but you were around City Hall for a long time. You worked very closely with Mayor Barnes. What are your thoughts about this starter streetcar system?
Usually I have strong opinions, but I'm very conflicted by this. I don't see how streetcar...
That's a first.
No, Roe can't tell the truth. You can't have an opinion. What's going on
And you've
here?
become conservative.
I don't see where it goes. To me, a mass transit is not a trolley car, and you're going to get on it at 5th and Grand and ride it where? I mean, I understand the downtown. It's basically just a people mover is what they're proposing, a very expensive one. But I don't see how you take it from there to take a trolley out to, you know, the Plaza, the Brookside, the Waldo.
Well, no, that's what they're thinking of doing. I mean, you know, I could see that happening.
Then they should have done that, really.
You know.
Then they should have done that. If that's the vote that they wanted to have. then that's
This
what they
is
should have
meant to
done.
be just the beginning, am I
Well,
right?
it is,
The core, the hub, if you will.
Right, and I think to any point about how many people are voting on this election, again,
Yeah.
I would essentially agree it could have been a citywide election. And it might or might not have passed, but depending on where it goes next, you're going to have more people voting. So eventually, you will get the whole city involved. So we'll either have the starter line, or it may go out to the plaza, it may go north of the river.
This way,
That's what they're also talking about.
It's a leap of faith to think,
sure.
A, they can build it for what they're saying, and B, can they get the federal money? I mean, it's a tough go.
And this is a leap into the next topic.
Okay.
It would be dereliction of duty for me not to bring up national politics with 2 major political consultants joining the panel this week as visitors, so I will. It won't be long before we start to focus on the 2014 congressional elections. Right now, Republicans control the U.S. House, Democrats the Senate, and of course, a Democrat is in the White House. Historically, but not always, the president's party loses seats in midterm elections. Democrats need 17 seats to take back control of the House. Republicans need a net gain of 6 seats to claim the Senate. So let us start with the Democrats, since there are more of those here. Is it prudent? Is it prudent for realistic, pragmatic Democrats to think they have a chance at regaining the House?
I think the House would be a stretch. I mean, there'd have to be some defining issue that we don't know about at the moment. If it's just a regular election, not only are off years not good, but the middle of the second term off year is even worse. I mean, Clinton reversed it, but that had a lot to do with the revulsion over the whole impeachment fiasco and the overreach by the Republicans. So I think the House is, at best, maybe our party might pick up some seats, but it's more likely it'll be a push or even lose a few seats. You know, the magic of the Obama election had to do with minorities and independent women. I mean, that was sort of...
And Obama. And the man himself.
Yes, but I mean, because of the man himself, he, you know, in some areas, black turnout was higher as a percentage than white turnout. It's so hard to do in an off-year election to get those people riled up enough to vote like they did in November. The Senate, I think we will keep the Senate because I think we just have, we have enough of better candidates than they do that we'll lose a few seats, but we'll keep control, and that's the big thing.
Jeff, we saw that special election in South Carolina return former Governor Sanford to the U.S. House. I believe you did some work in that campaign. Is that a harbinger of things to come?
Off-year elections typically do pretend to foreshadow what's going to happen in election year, but the math of the House is very difficult. There's only 100 seats in Congress that can switch parties. We've seen good candidates run against Kevin Yoder and Emmanuel Cleaver and Sam Graves, and all get defeated by more than 10 points. So of the 60,
is that because of gerrymandering?
Sure, certainly,
yeah.
and because voters vote the way their granddaddy voted in many respects. And so when you boil the 100 seats down, the seats that are actually competitive are about 61 seats. 9 of those seats are Republicans that sit in the seat that Obama won. 16 seats that are Democrats that are in seats that Romney won. So they're at a disadvantage there. Plus, of the 61 seats that are open, they'd have to win 55. We'll gain seats in the House, and I think we have an outside shot at taking the Senate.
Mary?
Well, if there's any help for Democrats in the polls, it is that currently, if you ask most Americans who they'd vote for in a congressional race, interestingly enough, at this moment, this month, the Democrats are ahead by several points. And I think that has to do with this battle in Congress between the president's effort to move the country forward and we're not going to collaborate with anybody attitude on the part of the congressional Republicans. But it's, it's a cliche to say it's way too soon to predict things. But yeah, they're just seats that cannot change. Yeah. And then you look at the ones that can, and can Democrats do well? I wouldn't talk about South Carolina as a harbinger of anything, though. If anything, it's that we're going to turn the Democratic Party into the family values party, Jeff.
Let me go over here to Yale and Steve. The criticism of the Democrats, generally speaking, is that the party's moved too far left, and the criticism of the Republicans is the party has moved too far right. Your thoughts about those two questions?
Well, I don't think the Republicans have moved too far right because they keep getting elected. And that's why I keep telling all these liberals that I talk to, oh, the Republicans, they're going to die next time. Oh, we've got them where we want them. Well, no, they have control of almost all of Kansas. They have government. They have control of almost all of Missouri government. So locally, in this area, veto-proof. And then nationally, I agree with Jeff. I mean, I think Democrats will probably lose in this next election some seats. Why? Because in general, they're in some of the gerrymandered seats, but I think people are kind of fed up with government. Where do you turn to be fed up with government? Well, you turn to the people who hate government, which are Republicans who want to keep getting elected to government.
15 seconds, Steve. We've got to wrap it up.
Well, the unknown would be if the economy, we keep adding jobs. If we have an unemployment rate that's, let's say, 6.5 or hopefully, for the country, lower than that, you might make a feel-good case that might get enough independents to flip a seat or two that you wouldn't think could be won right now. And I think that would play out more in the Senate races than it would the House races. But again, that's what I love about politics. You never know.
The concept of federalism means that power is divided between the national government and the 50 states. Both the federal and state governments are considered sovereign, meaning each has authority to deal with a number of issues. Sometimes, though, the line is blurred, and that seems to be the case for some on gun rights. Historically, when state and federal laws conflict, the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution is cited and the issue is resolved. But Missouri and Kansas legislatures, both controlled by Republicans, are not so willing to accept Washington's judgment on state gun legislation. Now, ultimately, I think it's likely the federal government will prevail, but Jeff, what is the benefit, if there is any, for Republicans to take a strong stand on this?
Frankly, it's to relieve tension among their base. And we see this not just on guns, but Arizona passes a gun law, and the Kansas City City Council passes a resolution condemning it.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Explain that to relieve tension in the base.
Sure. First of all, if you're a state representative, first of all, a lot of people don't know if you're going to Washington to cast votes, and they don't know if their congressman's going to Jeff City or Topeka to cast votes. So the question that these politicians get is, what are you doing to fix this? You've got to do something. And so they go down and pass a resolution or pass a law that says, look, we can't fix Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, but we can send a message from Missouri. And that's what they're doing. They're simply responding under the federalist system. Right. They're responding to their constituents. And by the way, we don't have the market cornered on doing crazy things. The Democrats do it a lot in legislatures across the nation. Kansas City has a history of the Kansas City City Councils doing it. Iraq War, immigration laws.
Passing resolutions about something that they have no control over and have nothing to do with.
And they're responding, and by the way, that's democracy. They're responding to their constituents.
Except that's not a resolution that was passed in Missouri. Those are laws. Those are laws threatening.
The city council was a resolution.
I mean, the city council does something about Iraq or whatever. Obviously, nobody's going to pay attention to it. But If you're passing a law
would
in
too.
Kansas
Wait
and
a minute.
Missouri that you're going to arrest a federal officer for doing his job or his or her job, I mean, we're kind of in crazy land. Now, I would agree these kind of things get, a state wants to have some rights and all that kind of good stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't think those kind of laws are going to stand, but we'll see. It's good theater, as Jeff pointed out. It's great political theater for Sam Brownback to say, "By God, Eric Holder did him a great deal of favor by sending him that letter saying you're, in violation. So all the liberals go, "Hey, you go, Eric, tell him." Well, Brownback he's got to fight back. It's great for him.
Political theater. I mean, it's serious business.
No, they're not going to arrest anybody.
Nullification. They're sending a signal that states' rights are back. And what is nullification all about, other than when it first raised its ugly head was during the 19th century in the battle over whether all Americans would be free from slavery. Okay, so we understand well, that's true, Jeff.
But states' rights do exist, and they do apply to areas other than civil rights.
But this is absolutely a stunt, and Yale's right in that respect. But look at, these gun laws are significant, and some of these gun laws are really, in some respects, dangerous. And the Congress just wanting to have some way to have a background check on people, when about 90% of the people in this country agree with that.
Steve?
And the Republicans holding back.
My friends, you are a citizen of the United States. You are a resident of a state. You're not a citizen of a state. You don't inherently have rights because you live in Missouri or Kansas under our Constitution. And this confusion that the far right has, that somehow that they're equal, it's not in the Constitution. It's not in almost any of our laws except laws that people ignore, crazy laws. And, we are a federalist system. We had that. We settled that fight. It's over. Unless you want to have another one, I'll go get my gun.
Well, that's why we don't have the Articles of Confederation.
Right,
why we have a Constitution is to, in part, create a more powerful central government.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yes.
And now it's time for Roast and Toast, where we make nice with or make trouble for people and events in the news. And we start tonight with Steve Glorioso.
I'm going to toast the mayor on this issue. I was at a meeting recently of the heads, chair of all the boards and commissions, both standing and interim, like the Revenue Commission that I served on. And I think this mayor has done an exemplary job of bringing more young people and more people, except not old fogies like myself, into city government. He appointed a commission on, what was the latest one? It was a big one, on police local control.
Yeah.
There were 30 people. I couldn't identify 23 of them probably. And I think that is a plus. And I toast Mayor James for trying to get different and more people involved in their community.
Jeff?
Thanks, Mike. Well, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on for the first time. I know in the political discourse, there's a 99% and the 1%ers, and I'm glad to be on the stage with the 1%ers. When this airs on Mother's Day, we all have a mother that's in the 1%. And the grace and elegance that my mom has shown throughout the years, and because my mother-in-law will be in town also, my mother-in-law displays, I appreciate them and want to give them a toast.
A politician indeed.
Shout out to my mom, too. Okay, but
I forgot mine.
yeah, right. But this is a roast to the Kansas City Police Department, Mayor Sly James, and I guess his son Kyle James, for the special attention the police department gave to this towed car that apparently belonged to Kyle James. The bodyguard of Sly James got involved in it. Eventually, police let the situation go without having a fine being paid, even though there are outstanding warrants. I couldn't have gotten a deal like that. You couldn't have gotten a deal like that. It was special treatment, and it should not have happened.
Well, a big toast on the week of Harry Truman's birthday, which was yesterday, to the senator who actually has his chair in the United States Senate, Claire McCaskill. You know, she was on to this whole business of sexual assault of women in the military long before it was popular, long before other senators had taken an interest. And now, yesterday, on Harry Truman's birthday, out booms this story that there were 26,000 more sexual assaults on women in the military this last year than the previous year, which is a pretty astounding number. Claire is holding up the appointment of Lieutenant General Susan Helms to a high post in the military because she reversed a jury decision on a rape case within the military. They're actually allowed to do that. Claire is on to this just like her mentor, Harry Truman, who would be so proud of her activities.
Finally, a well-deserved toast to those involved with Wednesday's Truman Good Neighbor Award Luncheon honoring former President Bill Clinton. More than 1,000 people attended at the Muehlebach Hotel. Clinton's speech was well presented and well received. And special congratulations to my former radio partner, Jerry Fogel, who did a terrific job as MC. I taught him well. And that is Ruckus for now. Join Nick Haynes for Kansas City Week in Review Friday evening at 7:30. Now on behalf of the Ruckettes and the Ruckus crew, I'm Mike Shannon saying thanks for watching and good night.
Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.